I have 3 SQs on this. The first would be in relation to governance and controls. First, I note that Allianz settled a criminal case in the US 2 years ago for around $6 billion over allegations that it defrauded investors, and its US subsidiary pleaded guilty to criminal securities fraud and agreed to pay fines and make restitution to investors. Did MAS look into this and also is MAS then therefore satisfied that corporate governance and controls have been strengthened and that there are no residual concerns? Because after all, Income serves 1.7 million Singaporeans with a significant market share in areas such as motor insurance, about 20%, property, and also health, roughly around 15% for each of those. My second SQ relates to a point made in the Allianz announcement, and in the announcement it quotes that Allianz and the offerer intend to undertake a strategic and operational review of the company and its subsidiaries with a view to enhancing the value of existing businesses, operating the company in a more capital efficient manner. And then further on it says, pending the outcome of such a review, Allianz may make changes to the operations and businesses of the company and its subsidiaries. I note that there were approximately 1,900 employees of Income at the moment, and having worked on a number of acquisitions, I know it is standard for discussions to be had between parties about streamlining operations, possible redundancies, and sometimes certain undertakings are made about continued employment for a certain amount of time, particularly for key officers. However, it is natural that existing staff, especially those who are more junior, would be concerned and wonder whether and how they would be supported through this. Given the above, is the government or MAS aware of any discussions being made about possible job losses? And will there be, or MAS consider if any guarantee should be made and sought from Allianz about existing employees, about their employment situation, and will this form part of the MAS regulatory assessment and ultimately decision whether or not to approve the transaction? And finally, if I may, on the point about the financial sustainability of Income, I note a report that was published in December 2023 by 01 Research, where it notes that the capital adequacy ratio of Income Insurance was roughly 193% under the RBC2 framework, and this was based on reported data. This exceeds by a wide margin the minimum required level of 120% under Singapore's Insurance Act. So my question is, could I get some clarity about why Income, there are concerns about Income's unsustainability as a business given this healthy buffer? Thank you.
Minister Chee.
Madam Deputy Speaker, I thank Ms. Ting Ru for her 3 questions. Let me start off with the first one about the case against the Allianz Global Investors in the US. So, Madam, the Allianz Global Investors is a US entity under the Allianz Group, and this structure, this entity, is not linked to the entity that will be entering into a deal, this proposed deal with Income. The product that got into trouble with the US regulators, the Allianz entity that is in Singapore, they did not manage and they also did not offer similar funds like this fund that got into trouble, which is called the Structured Alpha Funds. And the investigation by the US Department of Justice on Allianz Global in the US also did not review that any other entities within the Allianz Group, including the entity here in Singapore, they were aware or they had participated in the misconduct. So I hope that addresses the question that Ms. He raised. Ms. He's second question with regards to the announcement by Allianz that they intend to do a review of the operations and to see how they can deploy capital and also streamline their operations. I think that is to be expected, that every time you have a merger, you have a corporate restructuring, whether it involves another party or it's done internally, we are always looking for ways to work more productively and to become more efficient. Whether that then translates into what Ms. He was concerned about, which is job losses, I think let's not jump too far ahead. They haven't even entered into the proposed deal yet, hasn't even been approved yet. So that's still, it's a bit too early, a bit too premature to start to talk about whether there will be job losses. But as I mentioned earlier in my main reply, in response to a question that Ms. Fumiha raised, because I know Ms. Fu is also very concerned about our workers and wanted to make sure whether their interests will be protected. The MES doesn't directly regulate employment practices of financial institutions. And this is not just for income, this is across all financial institutions. But we do expect our FIs to comply fully with the MOM employment laws and guidelines. And if the workers are not treated fairly, that's where MOM and NTUC will be able to come in and help to speak up for our workers, just like what NTUC has done in previous cases, where there are job losses and the workers were not fairly treated. NTUC will step forward and fight for our workers so that we give our workers a fair deal. Now, as I qualified earlier, this is too early for us to talk about that because in Chinese they say 八字都还没一撇. You haven't even completed the deal. And therefore, it's too early for us to start talking about some of these downstream potential issues. But the assurance I want to give to the member and also to our workers is that we expect Income and Allianz, we expect the entity to treat its workers fairly and to comply fully with the MOM employment laws and guidelines. To Ms. He's last question, I would like to go back to what MOS Alvin Tan mentioned earlier in his speech, in his reply rather, sorry, which is that that's why NTUC enterprises had to inject additional capital into Income. And so maybe the healthy state of what Ms. He has seen being reported is the outcome of NTUC enterprises injecting additional capital into Income. Now, as I also mentioned earlier in my response to Mr. Ang, this doesn't mean that in the immediate moment, at the immediate point in time, Income is having a problem with its finances. That's not the case. But we know insurance is not a just here and now business, it's also a long-term business with a long tail. So how do you ensure that over the longer term, you are stronger and better able to meet your obligations and to protect the interests of your policyholders, both the existing policyholders and also new policyholders that you may take on later on. And this is best done when you have a strong insurer.
Just two questions for the Minister, and this pertains to the second thrust of his original reply, which was on the subject of Singaporeans' access to affordable insurance products. The first question, and both my questions pertain to what has happened over the last 24 hours. The first pertains to the statement by the Income Secretary General, Mr. Ng Chee Meng, and he stated that today Income offers two low-cost schemes for union members, NTUC Gift and Love Life Insurance. Income has assured NTUC that it will keep premiums affordable for these policyholders, especially in the lower income segments. NTUC will ensure that Income upholds this commitment, unquote. Can I ask the Minister, with regard to MAS as regulator of insurance companies, has it queried NTUC on the basis of such a commitment that has been made in view of NTUC's enterprises' projected minority shareholding if the deal goes through? And relatedly, can I inquire whether MAS is looking at the market to provide more low-cost options for Singaporeans, especially underserved communities who require insurance protection? The second question pertains to NTUC's joint statement of the 4th of August and the response of the former Income CEO, Mr. Tan, yesterday. MAS as regulator would note that there is a point of difference between NTUC Enterprises' alleged representation that it's undertaking to hold on to the relevant shares was, I quote, not for an indefinite period. Mr. Tan, on the other hand, represents that this is not true, and he invites MAS to ask both NTUC Enterprise and NTUC Income to produce all the material board minutes on the undertaking given by NTUC Enterprise. What is MAS's position on this matter? Thank you.
Minister Chi.
Madam Deputy Speaker, I thank the Leader of the Opposition for his two questions. The first question on the insurance products that Income will continue to provide, and also what the NTUC Secretary General said in terms of those two specific low-cost products targeted at especially the lower-income workers. We are glad that NTUC has stepped forward to provide this assurance to look after the lower-wage workers. From a regulatory point of view, we do not go into the level of details in which the Secretary General of NTUC has provided, because he has gone beyond what is the regulatory requirement for him to give this assurance. He's actually gone beyond, but he did it because he understands the concerns and he wants to give the assurance to the lower wage workers that NTUC will continue to stand by them. For MAS, my reply earlier to Ms. Fu, to Mr. Ang and others, and also in my main reply, that is what MAS will focus on, that we will make sure that the terms and conditions of the existing policies will not change after the proposed deal has gone through. And that is something that we will hold Income and Allianz to, and that is something that will be part of our regulatory approval. To Mr. Singh's second question, we have noted the two letters from Mr. Tan Swee Chae, and we will do some further work to establish what are the facts before we assess what is our position and our next steps. And I want to assure Mr. Singh and also the House that MAS takes a serious view on protecting the interests of our policyholders and other stakeholders, and we will establish the facts, and then we will assess what should be our next steps.